Okay, we're live. This is it. We're live. I believe chat is enabled, etc. If you guys could let me know, if you can hear me. I'm sure you'll let me know anyway. Just going to wait for this to catch up. I can't see how many people are following, so yeah, Steve Ridgway just popped up. Steve, if you can hear me, can you let me know? Or anyone else, just hit a little message down in the message. Just let me know you can hear me. That'd be great if you guys could let me know that you can hear me. Thank you very much. Hopefully you can. That'd be good. Definitely. That's going to make this talk. Hi, Nick Valaris. Can you let me know if you can hear me on YouTube, please? If you guys can hear me, it's going to make this talk much better. Awesome. I'm glad you can hear me. Thank you, Lewis, on YouTube as well, for letting me know you can hear me. I'm going to give it sort of a 5 minutes or so. Well, no, not 5 minutes, a minute or two, let everyone else catch up. There seems to be some people listening, so I'll give it a minute, maybe a minute or two, and then we'll catch up and we'll crack on. I hope everybody's good. Hope everybody's maintaining their sanity over the last 5 days. If at any time you start to question your sanity, just remember that I've had to move back in with parents. So I'm living with my dad and my stepmom at the moment because I'm in the middle of buying a house. So however bad things are for you, just remember I'm living with parents. Yeah, so I think about another 30 seconds or so and we'll crack on, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Just check all feeds are up and running. All feeds are good. I'm sorry that I have to have this placed on my lap like this. I did have a secondary webcam, but that secondary webcam has decided to stop working. So I would have bought another one today had I checked. Lack of organization. But I mean, I just have this on my lap. But I'm guessing if it gets interactive and somebody asks a question, I can look through and it allows me to keep up with you guys. I don't like single person video podcasts, really. I find them a bit self-indulgent. But these times mean we can't do it any other way. If anybody asks a really good question and I don't quite understand it, then I will get you to call me and I will put you live on speakerphone and we can address that question. And we can go from there. That's the best way that I can think of doing this right now. So, yeah. Right then. Okay. So let's go. Basically, I'll give you a slight overview of what this podcast is about, why I'm doing it, etc. Obviously, the times that we're in right now are really special in that it's never been seen before. Whole country's on lockdown. You'd have to go back to maybe the war or something for something similar to these conditions. And in a modern society where everybody's so used to having their freedom and stuff, yeah, these are obviously really, really strange times for everybody. And that seems to have incited quite a bit of fear among people. And I've been working on a project for about a year to 18 months now where I wanted to have a look at fear within paragliding specifically, because obviously it's now that I'm coming towards the end of my MMA career, paragliding is probably my main focus sports-wise. So I've wanted to have a look at fear within paragliding because I've noticed that a lot of pilots, fear seems to hold them back. Fear is very much a negative for them, and it's preventing people who, when I watch them fly, they're very good pilots. I mean, it's not up to me to say people are a good or a bad pilot, but it's certainly up to me to say that guy's not a bad pilot, and I can see that it's holding people back unnecessarily sometimes just because they have fear or they're scared of certain aspects. So I have been looking at it. And I want to cover early on in this that I am not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not approaching this from a neuroscience perspective. I will maybe mention the amygdala or the prefrontal cortex loosely. I won't address them in a scientific manner, or I won't try and address cortisol too much. I will obviously mention it maybe, but I'm not a scientist. I don't want to try and portray myself as a scientist, and I don't want to harbor on about stuff that I really shouldn't be talking about. This is basically my take on fear and how I have seen fear both within myself as a professional athlete, a base jumper, skydiver, doorman, bailiff, moving gypsies, all aspects of my life. Also, how I've handled fear as a coach. Managing people's fear, fighters' fear, is a big part of being a coach. And something that I've seen people neglect in other coaching is watching certain individuals and just catching their eye, or just catching a certain movement. It makes me think, hang on, I need to address something here. We need to discuss a little something. It might be on just before we walk to the cage. It could be a week out from a fight, but addressing fear has been a big part of my adult life as a coach, as a sportsman. And I have spent a lot of my time right back in early days to even dealing with psycho-cybernetics and neuro-linguistic programming with books from Maxwell Maltz, etc. Steve Peters, The Chimp Paradox, which is a really famous book. I spent a lot of my career trying to figure out fear and the psychology aspect of professional sports, and especially in professional sports such as fighting. The reason fighting is quite unique is, in a lot of sports, the fear of maybe getting injured, or the fear of getting hurt, or the fear of failing is a small aspect. In professional MMA, getting hurt is an accepted part of our sport, or at least it should be an accepted part of our sport. One of the last things I say to anybody I coach and walk to the cages, and most people will agree and will attest, is one of the last things I absolutely say is, I say to people, do not go out there expecting not to get hit. This is a fight. You are going to get hit and you are going to get hurt. But the moment you keep fighting, it will be gone and it will pass. You will not be in a situation that you've never been in your life. And I make sure that they're very aware of that. And I also explain to them that what will separate us from our opponent is, we're not going out expecting to stop people quickly. We're not going out expecting to knock people out. We're going out fully expecting to have a hard fight that's going to test us. It's going to test our fears, going to test our abilities. We are going to get hurt. It's going to not be nice, whether that's someone trying to armbar you and escape, whether it's being elbowed in the face. Fighting's very much being hurt is very much an aspect of fighting. So addressing that fear aspect is a big part of fighting. Now, from that aspect, fear shouldn't be confused with nerves. And I do want to look at that later on, the difference between fear and nerves, etc. Because one of the other things I say just before we walk to the cage, and I save it just before we walk to the cage because it's better for that to be the last thought, is that nerves are good, nerves are positive. Don't fear what's about to happen, because fear will incite all different emotions that nerves will not. Nerves will keep us on our toes and highlight aspects that we can make very positive. Fear in this respect, I have found, will very much hold you back. If you're going into an environment like an MMA fight, a boxing match, fear can be very detrimental. Nerves, on the other hand, won't necessarily be. They can be, and generally it's because you've allowed fear to overtake the nerves. So it's very important that we address both fear and nerves in that aspect. The other real one for me was that I've seen a lot of people talking about this scenario, the coronavirus outbreak, the COVID outbreak, and I've seen a lot of responses that are very much due to fear. And they come in the form of, I've seen quite a few people in this current situation. They've said things like, oh my God, keeping me and my family safe, the killer virus. Oh my God, if I don't imagine what I'll think if I caught the virus and anything happened to me and this. And I thought to myself, where is the fear coming from? And then people say, Boris has said the killer virus, etc. And I think what people have done in this context is they've taken all the worst aspects or the worst diagnosis that you can have from this, and they've assigned it to themselves, and they've completely ignored the fundamentals and ignored the information that's actually been given to us. And they've drawn out of it all the scary stuff, and they've assigned it to themselves. Just today, I've spoken to 2 people alone who really had it in their head that if they get this virus, they're going to die. That's it. It's going to be a high risk chance of, if I get the virus, once you get the virus, that's it. And then they said Boris Johnson's got the virus, and it's just conflated fears. It's what you've allowed to happen is all the negative aspects of information that you've received, you've held on to, and you've ignored all the other positives, or you've actively sought out the negative aspects and you've clung on to them. So yes, this virus is killing people. Yes, this virus is bad, but we are not locked in our houses because there's a killer virus that's going to kill us. That's not the aspect of, that's not the intention of us. Inevitable. And once you explain that to people and they start to ask questions, so I shouldn't have to worry about dying. That should be right down the list of your priorities. If you have no underlying illnesses, and if you have lots of, and I mean, I'm not talking, I have no information bar what's given to me by the government, by scientists, etc. But going on their information, I would say you have very little to fear from this virus in the aspect of health and mortality, especially if you are, say, under 60 years old, you have no underlying illnesses, all the things that the government have told us that you already know. And I don't mean to sound patronizing and harp on about stuff that most of you know, but this is what led me to want to do this, is that people have clung on to that. And that allowed me to, it solidified for me that people are hanging on to certain aspects and they're creating their own fear. So that's why I thought I would address this subject. And it will be largely targeted around my sport, what I know, experiences I've had. And that's the only aspect I can approach it. I would be more than happy for you, A, to pop up and ask questions. I'll try and keep up with them. And B, if you would like to ask questions afterwards and we can go back over this in another podcast, that's completely fine as well. We've got nothing else to do, right? We're just killing time. So yeah, let's talk fear, basically. Now, the first thing is we need to understand fear. Like, what is fear? And one of the first definitions you'll see in fear is that fear is an emotion induced by perceived danger or threat. Now, for me, when I first started looking at this, this is what really made me start to dissect fear and look at it and how I could combat it. Was it that word perceived? The word perceived in that sentence is massively important, because a perception is not something real. It's not something that's happening. It's not something that's happened. It's an interpretation or a thought or a preemptive of what could happen. It's not actually what's happening. So lots of people with fear are getting scared or experiencing fear, thinking about what could happen, they create scenarios, etc. So in that aspect, the fear comes from something that isn't real. It's absolutely 100% fictional. Your fear is very much, I mean, many fears are irrational or illogical. There aren't many logical fears. But people don't realize that most of their fears are created by themselves. And when I say most of them, we're talking 99.9% of all fears are created by us. It's said, and was largely considered to be fact. So it's very hard to prove scientifically, but it's largely considered that this is the case, that humans are born with two fears and two fears alone. They are falling and loud noises. Now, even if we were to assume that that is correct and we take loud noises, I would 100% say loud noises are a fear that we're born with, and one that stays with us over time. You only have to have a gunshot or a firework go off behind you and you will jump. Someone drops a pan and you jump, not necessarily through logic or because bad experiences. If you've been to Afghanistan or something, then obviously there will be certain aspects of maybe PTSD or stuff that will obviously that will incite those fears, which is not up to me to address, and I can't very well. But if you were to look at falling, now falling may very well be an innate fear from birth, but also it's one that we grow out of rather quickly. If we were to take a child who's young, who's scared of, who's got the fear of falling, which they think possibly comes from being apes, evolution, etc., and being in trees or boreal and being at height and the mother holding you, if we have those fears, let's say, what should happen is that as you get older and you develop the ability to walk, maintain balance, and stay on your feet, that fear should dissipate massively over time, because falling should become a very, very small aspect of your life then, because you are now you now have an ability to prevent falling in every aspect of your life. So that fear should dissipate. But for many, the fear of falling seems to increase. And unless you have had a big fall or a bad experience with falling, any fear that comes from falling after a certain age, or once you have full ability to maintain balance, is created by yourself. Now, many people will say that they're scared of heights. And up until, I would say I'm still possibly scared of heights. Heights was my biggest fear, and that's why I started base jumping and skydiving. It's not I was really scared of heights. I didn't like being at height. I was never comfortable being at height. Walking across the suspension bridge with the wobble, I never used to like. But for me, the main problem was when I was at height, I always got urges to jump off. So I would be at the top of a tall building, like the Empire State Building, and I'd get near the edge and I'd feel like I'm gonna jump. I'm going to jump. I got to get away. And I have to get away from the edge really quickly, because there was an overwhelming urge for me to jump off the edge of the building or to jump off the edge of a bridge. And that, I took that to be fear. There's many different ideas that it's not, but I took that to be fear, and it scared me. So I prevented myself from being at height. Now, that led to me skydiving, because I was always the sort of person that when I'm scared of something, I want to overcome it. When something frightens me, I want to overcome it. The only exception to that is little girl ghosts and scary movies, really. I have no intention of getting over the fear of little girl ghosts. I'm petrified of little girl ghosts, and I will remain petrified of little girl ghosts. I'm also scared of little boy ghosts, but little girl ghosts specifically terrify me. And as many will confirm, when I'm sat in the cinema, if a scary movie trailer comes on, I'm usually watching through my fingers. I don't like scary movies. I don't like little girl ghosts. But being at height really absolutely scared me, to the point that I didn't want to do it. So then I would sit there and think, oh, that's it, I'm going to skydive. I'm not letting this beat me. I'm not letting this fear beat me. I want to skydive. I'm going to jump from planes. And I had a fight booked, and the fight got cancelled. And the day the fight got cancelled, I was sat in my gym and I booked a skydiving course. And I decided I was going to go to California and learn how to skydive. So I went to California, and I can remember my first time up in the plane, riding up in the plane, the way that I felt. And for me, there wasn't a fear. Like, it's not a fear like what's going to happen. Am I going to die? The fear wasn't that. It was, what if I can't do this? What if the door opens and I can't jump? And that was something that I had to prove to myself. I needed to jump out of this plane to prove to myself I can do this. There's no way this is going to hold me back, me worrying about something that hasn't happened or maybe won't happen. I'm going to prove that I can do this. So I went to California and started skydiving. Luckily, skydiving is a lot more fun than the fear was scary. So I continued to skydive, and it progressed from there, really. So coming back from that, from those things, me looking at the fears that I had there, the heights, I started paragliding a few years later. And I remember my first time ever on a tandem. I went on a tandem and I didn't enjoy it. For about 15 minutes, I really didn't enjoy it. I thought, whoa, I want to be on the ground. I haven't really got any control. And I got the urge to, as soon as I got high, I got the urge to want to jump out and not really be there. It wasn't really fun for me. I was just strapped onto something, being floating around. It wasn't. And I landed and immediately wanted to go up again. And then as soon as I took off, I was nervous again. I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't like it. And then I started ground handling it, working on solo paragliding. And once I was given the control and I could control it, I felt a lot better. But if you go back and review some of my early videos on my YouTube channels of me paragliding, you'll see I had a side-mounted camera here, and you can see my eyes are blinking a lot like this, because paragliders move around and they twitch a lot, and it's just a piece of fabric that fills with pockets of air, and it adjusts without you putting inputs in. It was twitching, and I was always a little bit like, it's not really, I'm not really enjoying this. And I would land, and the second I landed, I couldn't wait to go back up. But I'd take off and I'd find myself again, sort of, I'm not sure if I'm really enjoying. I'm not really sure if I'm enjoying this. And that stuck with me for quite a while with my paragliding, until I could thermal. As soon as I could thermal, the world opened up for me, because I could get into a thermal and I could climb, and then it became a competition, me against the elements, to try and get as high as I could. And that took that fear aspect away from me. But what it did do is it left me with an imprint inside of the fear of maybe the take. Is this going to be enjoyable? What if I didn't really enjoy this? I don't know if I'm going to. So I looked harder at what was actually going on. And from there, coupled with the other things, I tell you what I'll do here. I'll address a couple of other fears. I've spoken about fear into fighting, fear into skydiving, fear into paragliding. Now, over the years, I've worked a lot of jobs, bailiff jobs, door job, as a doorman, a bouncer, as a bodyguard, some close protection stuff. Now, as a bailiff, I used to move gypsies. A few of us would go and we'd move big groups of gypsies, and we'd move them off the land, and we'd have to get them to leave. Now, lots of people would say, well, isn't that really scary? And it wasn't. I can't remember ever being scared on a gypsy job ever. Not because I think I'm tough and I'm harder and I'm surrounded by big tough guys. There's none of that bravado. But my years of working on the door as security allowed me to address my fear very differently in that scenario. So even now, I was a doorman for 18 years. My brother was a doorman for 15 years. Sometimes you go from 0 to 100 working as security on a nightclub. You're stood around, you're talking, the world is a great place. That quickly, it's violent, and really violent sometimes. Sometimes aimed at yourself. Sometimes you'd run into the dance floor because you've got a call, and you'd look and there'd be 20 guys fighting and there's only 5 doormen. But you have to respond. You have to do something. Your role is to ensure that everybody there is safe. So you have to act. Now, I've seen many doormen over the years freeze. That happens. They stand back. Everyone deals with something. You're watching the camera later, and the guy does nothing and show it. I don't know. I froze, and that doesn't make you a pussy in my eyes. That's an aspect of not being able to control your fear. I understand that. Now, what helps a lot of people in that scenario is that you don't get time to think. So when it happens, you respond, you deal with it. Afterwards, you assess what could have happened. And that then becomes quite scary when you look at what could have happened. Now, other times on the door, what will happen is you'll get confronted. Maybe on the front door, maybe face to face, you'll refuse somebody. There's 3, 4, 5 guys. You say they can't come in. They start to square up to you, and before you know it, you're engaged in a dialogue. You're sort of drawn into this dialogue of one person's disgruntled, one person's angry, one person looks like they're going to get violent, etc. And you have to deal with that. Now, it surprises me that even this late in my career, 18 years, fought professionally all over the world. I'm obviously not scared of violence. I try and avoid violence at all costs. Mainly, it costs me money if I injure myself outside of a cage. So I try not to be violent in my life if I can help it. But I'm not scared of it. But both my brother and I have had it where we've been confronted on the door. There's maybe 3 doormen, maybe 6, 7, 8 guys. It diffuses after, say, 20 minutes of arguments, verbal gesture, like bigging up your chest, etc. And then my brother will lean in, he's like, my legs started to go a bit there. I'm like, yeah, mine too. And you get that leg shake, that little bit of nervous energy where your leg just starts to twitch, and you get that knotted ball in your stomach. Excuse me. Get a knotted ball in your stomach. That sort of like, oh God, what if it kicks off in a minute? And you get that little that tension. Now, that for me is not fear. What happens, or how I address that, is fear. I try and take the two, fear and being scared. I try and take them apart, because it's very good to be scared. I think it's a good thing to be scared, but excuse me, being scared is a momentary thing. So you're not, once you've been scared, you've been scared. You can't be scared. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Because the thing that's scaring you would have to exponentially keep changing or getting worse in order for you to keep getting scared. Once you're scared, you're scared. Now, how you deal with being scared is the fear. This is where the fear creeps in. So, Nick, I have seen your post there. I'll come back and I'll try and address that specifically to you shortly. I'll get my sister trying to deal with that specifically. So yeah, how I deal with being scared in that moment for me is fear. So if I get that moment of being scared, whether that's when I'm paragliding and you get a collapse. For people who don't know, if you're paragliding, your wing can collapse sometimes. The air is not always fluid like a running stream. If you don't paraglide, you should think of air as a water approaching a waterfall. So how it moves over a waterfall, the air can act exactly like a liquid. So that's how air is. Lots of time it can be quite laminar and flat, and other times it's quite contorted and twisted. So it can make your paraglider collapse. And then your paraglider will do quite radical stuff unless you fix it. So that can happen. You can get a collapse in paragliding or a bad incident, which it lasts a second. That happens. It scares you. The moments after that being scared is fear. How you respond to that is then fear. MMA, fighting, boxing. Everyone here, whether you fight, train, etc., everyone here will have seen a fight, even at the highest level in UFC, where one guy punches another guy and he hurts him. And you can tell that all the fight's gone out. This guy's scared. He's scared of getting hit. The fear's got, he's got hit really hard. Maybe it hurt. And he's got that thing where he's like, oh shit, what? Cool, that really hurt. What? I don't want to get hit like that again. And that little bit of being scared, the fear can creep into them. And so many times I've seen in professional sports, professional MMA particularly, that happens and the guy goes into his shell and starts being defensive, trying to prevent the scary thing happening. But the scary thing already happened. So you're trying to prevent the thing that scared you happening, but it's already happened. You can't go back and change that. So now you're trying to prevent another scary thing happening whilst you're scared. That for me is fear. That's what I call fear. Now, I'll look at this and I'll give some scenarios of how that crops up. Now, base jumping. Base jumping is one of the most dangerous sports in the world. It is really stupid. I always say to people, if you can live your life without base jumping, don't base jump. It's a really stupid thing to do. Once you start base jumping, it's very hard to give up. And it's not a very rewarding thing to do. If you would look at it from other sports, it's just rewarding to the person individually. Now, in base jumping, there are lots of ways that you can really injure yourself, obviously. One of them is you get an off-heading. So if you jump a solid object like a building or a cliff, if your canopy opens facing the wrong way, you will be flying at the object. Now, this happens randomly. Lots of the time unexplained. Lots of people have tried to analyze why this happens, but it happens randomly and sometimes inexplicably. So when this happens, every time it's dangerous, really dangerous. Separation from you and the object is probably, let's say you've got a really good jump and you can get 12 feet away from the object. You manage to jump 12 feet away from the object. Your canopy opens facing the wrong way and immediately flies at that object. You have to, of course, avoid the object and turn your canopy away. So it's always dangerous. But the level of how dangerous that is obviously fluctuates and changes. I remember I had an off-heading once and I landed. I corrected it. I landed. It was on a building in San Diego and I landed and the guy goes to me, dude, you were so lucky. I thought you were done. I can't believe you missed that building. I was like, I was miles away, mate. I wasn't even close, really. It's like, honestly, you wait till you look at your footage. You were so close to that building. Now, I was very close to that building if you consider that if my canopy would have opened the right way, I would have been nowhere near it. If you consider this is base jumping and when things go wrong, they go really wrong, I wasn't even close to the building. I probably got to within 6 to 5 feet of the building, which is close. Yeah, that's really close. But the sort of thing that's really dangerous and, oh my God, this is, if I was within a foot of the building, I would have been, that's to the point where I'm like, oh my God, you were so close. 5 to 6 feet of the building for me is, the off-heading was really scary. It opened, it faced the wrong way. I have to deal with this. Boom, my instinctively deal with it. Boom. It was a matter of a second, probably less than a second. It opens, I steer away. I really yank my canopy, I get away. For me, it wasn't a big incident, because that 5 feet for me, is 6 feet maybe, is massive. The margin there is massive for me. So where the guy on the floor looked at it and he's, oh, I can't believe you were so close. I was, and it was a dangerous incident. But in the grand scheme of things, we're talking level 2, not level 10. And the way that I analysed that was, I still had loads of time to react to what had happened. So I processed the situation very differently to the guy viewing on the floor. Now, another way that, the reason I mentioned that, another way that comes in is paragliding. Someone once said to me, when you have an incident in the air, a big collapse, etc., and it feels crazy and it feels wild, I think it may have been on the Gavin McClure podcast, when it feels crazy, when it feels wild, imagine what it looks like from the ground. Because lots of times on the ground, people say like, oh, it didn't look that bad. And that's the same thing. It's perception. The perception of what could have happened will incite your fear. And they're both, I believe, really good examples of perception becoming your fear. Now, obviously, not everybody will have the same thing as me. And it's not, lots of people have said to me before, oh, you haven't got any adrenaline glands, you're crazy, you're nuts, you seek out this. And I don't like those adjectives, crazy, etc., because it implies that I'm not sensible, or I'm not assessing the situation properly, which I feel is a discredit. I'm not crazy. I'm not nuts. My tolerance for fear is probably a little bit higher, and that's only because I've managed it and been in a lot more scenarios, or lived my life surrounding incidents with fear, which incite fear more than other people. I'm not crazy. I still get the same twitches. People might be shocked to know that sometimes when I take off paragliding, I might not enjoy it for the first 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes I'm in the air thinking, not really sure if I'm feeling this today. I'm not really sure. And then someone else to take off and get in a thermal and start climbing. Oh no, you're not getting away, and I'm not, and I'm back in it. I'm on it. But I don't do loads of ridge soaring because I don't take off a lot of the time, and I don't automatically love what I'm doing. I have those little bits where it's not enjoyable, and possibly even a little bit scary. Something happens, like, oh God, this is not scary. It's going to be uncomfortable, and I'm going to have to manage those fears a little bit for the first 15, 20 minutes. And I know it's going to be the weather. The wind might be off the hill. I might be flying in stronger wind than I'd like to, and I really have to manage that for 15, 20 minutes. I really have to deal with it. Once I deal with that, I have something to focus on, like climbing out from the hill or getting away, or somebody doing better than me. That dissipates, and I'm now focused on something else. I'm not allowing those little nervousness or those little bits of being scared. I'm not allowing them to incite fear. So I've now concentrated on the other thing that is much more positive to me. I want to climb as high as him or higher, and I want to go as far as him or further. So that overtakes me. That helps me manage, because I can forget those little elements that are trying desperately to incite fear. And I can concentrate on the positive things that I'm looking to do. And that's not even consciously anymore. I don't consciously think, right, okay, come on, get my head out of this. I see something and I react to that, and that's it. I'm focused on that. Now, I understand, and it'd be really patronizing for me to say, you can do that. 100% everyone here can. If you're a paraglider pilot, every single pilot who I know is capable of having the exact same level of fear management as I am. I've not done anything that you guys can't do. I've just looked at fear for a longer period over a broader aspect of things, I would assume. So it's not that I'm different, I'm better in any way, shape, or form. I've just chosen to pick that aspect of the sport and focus on it for a longer period of time, I would imagine, than most. I've had accidents in paragliding. I had an accident in Westbury, and it really bothered me, not from a fear point of view, that I'd done something wrong. The the fear was gone. I flew the next day, but I thought I'd done something wrong. So I wanted to analyze what had happened. And that's the difference. Some people will analyze the fear, will stop analyzing what went wrong, and they will think this happened. Oh, this wing was bad. The weather was bad, etc. So the same with fighting. From a fighting aspect, walking to the cage is always, it's never an exciting prospect. Let's put it that way. 2 days before the fight, I'm really excited. I make weight, I'm really excited. When you actually have to walk from the changing room to the cage, it's very rarely an exciting prospect. That comes from working with fighters who have had 30 odd fights. I know fighters, I'm not going to name them, I'm sure they wouldn't mind, but I know fighters even now, they've said to me after 28 fights, 29 fights, I was thinking, cool, how nice it would be to trip over something and not have to do this fight on the way to the cage. I know fighters who are really famous who are still sick every single time they fight. Had 25, 30 fights, they're still sick every single time, because it's very seldom an exciting prospect to go and fight that person in the cage. Now, I know, and I have said to people, the moment the fight starts and the moment the first punch is thrown, all of that will dissipate. It still makes no difference. You still are stuck in that moment where the emotional side will take over you on the walk to the cage. Dealing with that is the issue. You can freeze in those first moments, or you can say, right, I know it's not going to be nice, but as soon as the fight starts, and you can be quite logical, which is the approach I try and take and I try and instill in other people. Excuse me. Now, a little bit of sciencey stuff then. Okay, so we'll give a couple of scenarios, a little bit of sciencey stuff around fear and what fear is. Just check on the YouTube, which is no, I am going to come back to you, Nick, I promise. A couple of little sciencey things, just so that we can just make sure we're on the same page. Everyone knows, I'm sure you do, how fear works. Everybody should know fear is a survival mechanism, a defense mechanism. It's something that's installed in us from primitive times. It's been with us for millions of years, and it will continue to be with us for millions of years, I'm absolutely sure. But that's because there's been a lack of fear management. People have got scared, or as animals were scared, and there's very little fear management. Now we're getting to the point where through psychology we can manage fear. What it does is fear attaches, or fear incites emotion, because it directly engages the amygdala, which is a part of your brain that controls emotion. And once that is engaged, it's very, very difficult to then be logical. So you have to practice that in order to address the emotion coming from the amygdala. When the amygdala is engaged, it releases a substance called cortisol, which then makes your body feel and act in a completely different way, which now you have a very physical response to fear as opposed to a mental and logical response to fear, which means that you're now addressing a feeling and an actual chemical running through your body, as opposed to just a thought that you could have prevented. You now have a chemical running through your body that you now have to manage, whilst managing whatever's actually going wrong, and at the same time managing your logical approach, which is where it sort of snowballs and it gets in on people and you get trapped, all because of these chemicals, the emotions. That's exactly what happens. It starts to snowball on people, and you do actually get caught in that. You get caught in that split second moment, and what was a split second then becomes the rest of your experience until it's over. And then obviously you have the prefrontal cortex, which is the part that then becomes the analytical aspect of fear, of the incident, and how you deal with the incident after is very much dealt with by the prefrontal cortex. So that is the aspect, that is the elements of fear, what make them, and the biological parts. I'm going to spend little to no more time thinking about them, because I don't want to go over chemical substances. I don't want to go over neurological responses. I want to try and just talk about things and processes that we can hopefully address. So I'm going to address Nick's question that he asked on YouTube. It might be 2 seconds. I haven't read it. I'm going to address that quickly. So Nick has said, for me, I still have fear holding me back since my accident in the strong stuff. I find myself fearing the really strong thermals. I climb then abort. How do I deal with this? Now, immediately, Nick's highlighted a perception. Nick has said, I fear holding me back since my accident in the strong stuff. Now, this is a perception, because what are you classing as the strong stuff, Nick? I mean, I've been in 9 meter a second climbs that are really small, and Pedro Bernardo, where everyone's trying to keep their outside tip inflated. We're talking paragliding. Bear with us if you don't paraglide. Hopefully you'll catch up. And they were really strong, really bullety. And then you might have been in a 5 meter a second climb, which was big enough for 3 wings in, but you're usually used to 2 meters a second. I know you've been in much more than that, Nick. I'm just trying to make a point. You may be in a 3 or 5 meter a second climb, but because you're only used to flying the quite well established thermals in a certain area on a certain site, you're perceiving them as the strong stuff, so that's very difficult. Is the perception there immediately as to what's the strong stuff. It's the same as the other day, a video was released on YouTube, on Facebook. It was a friend of mine, and they posted a video of a collapse at a site that I fly quite regularly. I'm sure everybody's seen this video, and they say about a collapse in the bumpy stuff. And I watched the video 5, 6, 7 times over the last couple of days, because I knew I was going to quote it here. And the thermal wasn't that abrupt, 5 meters a second. It wasn't massively punchy. How the pilot handled the wing was the reason they got the collapse. Once they got the collapse, what they did then after was they chose to go and land, because it was quite bumpy and quite rough. And then the second they are on the ground, the first thing they make a comment to is their collapse and how rough and how bumpy it was. So for me, for watching that video, what I noticed immediately, and what I took from that, was that you had an incident that happened that I would consider quite minor, and you've allowed that to stay with you long enough that it's forced you to go and land. All the time you're going to land, I suspect you were worried about landing under the conditions. You went and you landed, and as soon as you touched down, you referenced the incident, which, from the outside looking in, was rather benign. It was not a serious incident at all. Now, for me, what happened there was you got scared. Now, the same thing for you, Nick. I think this applies to you. What you're referencing to me is you're saying it's holding you back. You feel holding you back in really strong thermals. I climb and I abort. Well, this is the interesting thing here. You're in the thermal. It's strong, and it's a strong thermal. But you've put in there, I climb, then I abort. So the fact that you were already climbing, I'm assuming you're climbing without incident. So if you're climbing in a thermal that's strong without incident, what you're actually doing is you're not responding to something. You're now creating a fear. The fear is something you've now created. There hasn't been an incident to scare you. The force of the thermal might be scaring you, but you're creating those things. And it's important to understand that. It's important for you to understand that, is that you are actually creating that fear. You're bringing that into that big thermal that you've been climbing in. So you know the thermal's good. It's cool. So it might be wobbly. It might be a bit punchy. If you've had no collapse, if you're getting no collapses, you are then creating that. Now, this is going to be a management system for you. You're going to have to deal with it a few ways. Now, this is how fear is managed, overcome. I don't know that it can be massively overcome. You will be able to deal with it. But overcoming it, there are 2 real ways, basically. Immersion or exposure. You immerse yourself in it, or you expose yourself to more of it. And then you have cognitive regulation, or cognitive training of the fear. Now, immersion or exposure should be quite open and shut. You expose yourself to as much of the scenario as you can in a safe way. Now, I am not going to suggest anybody, base jumper, skydiver, paraglider pilot, go out and take as many risks as you can to alleviate fear. That's a ridiculous thing to do. What you have to do is you have to immerse yourself in these environments that are still safe, but where the fear starts to sink in, you get a little moment of being scared. It may not be an incident. It sounds to me, Nick, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds to me like you're talking yourself into being scared. What it sounds to me like is what you need to do from what I'm hearing is you need to manage it immediately. You put yourself in those scenarios, because I know you're not going to give up flying. I certainly hope you're not going to give up flying. It'd be a shame if you did. So you need to put yourself in these situations, and as soon as you're in them, the moment you recognize this is a little bit uncomfortable, the second you feel that, the moment you can highlight that, you respond immediately with, but I'm dealing with it really well. I'm dealing with this. It's uncomfortable. Yeah, but if I stick with this, it won't be comfortable. Oh, it's a little bit bumpy here. I'm going to stick with this for a few hundred feet. I'll climb through this, stick with it. I'm doing really well here. Nothing's happened. Okay, yeah, nice. Okay. And another good thing to do is distract yourself. Take yourself away. That's happening. Reference your clocks. Reference your information. Where is it I wanted to go? Stay in the thermal. Make sure you stay in it. Don't try not to fall out of the thermal, etc. You know, make sure you're still piloting. Piloting is going to be really important in this scenario. But reference something. Where am I flying to? Okay, yeah, no, I'm flying to, I don't know, Petersfield today. Or, okay, I'm planning to, oh, there's Mike over there. Radio. If you have a radio on you, it's a little bit, you know, if you're getting collapses, don't radio, please. But you're definitely more experienced and you're well experienced enough to know that. But radio somebody. If you're getting a little bit uncomfortable, you can feel that creeping. Radio someone. Hi, Andrew, still with me on radio? Hi, Wes, you still with me on radio? I get a response back. That split second, if you hit it, the split second that you get that anxious feeling, you will hopefully be enough that you will suppress the release of cortisol long enough that you manage to get through that little bit of fear. And if you can stop it in the split second, that might buy you 10 minutes. In those 10 minutes, you may now be 1,000 feet higher than you were, and that thermal's lovely and smooth. Or everyone's left and you're now on a glide, and you're on a beautiful, mellow glide to the next thermal. You hit the next thermal, and this is really important. Don't dread that next thermal. Don't create the fear. Don't be scared of the next thermal, and don't create the problem before you get there. You fly, you concentrate on what you're doing. Okay, this is good. Yep, we're flying there. Oh, there's Andy, there's Wes, there's so-and-so. Yeah, perfect. Oh, they're in a nice climb. I'll go and join them. Enter the thermal, expecting it to be a lovely thermal. You get in the thermal. It starts to give you a little twitch. The moment it starts to get you a little twitch, yeah, but I dealt with the last one perfectly. I'll fly this really well. I'm trying to address it immediately as soon as it happens. Now, this is going to be a response that's going to take exposure and immersion. Now, if you had a fear of drowning, I wouldn't recommend you go and get waterboarded. So it's the same with this. If you have an issue with flying, I'm certainly not going to recommend, I'm not going to suggest that you're going to cure this in one hit and it's going to be over. It's going to be over. And a reason I know that is I still now take off sometimes and I'm not really enjoying it for a little while. And it's not that I'm scared. There's no fear. I'm just not like, oh, this is going to be hard. Oh, this is going to be uncomfortable. And I start, that negativity can start. Now, I'm a very positive person, so I don't let it. If you have those negative thoughts and you've had an incident, which obviously makes it worse, they're going to grow. They're going to multiply. And the way that I sum up this is the way that I describe fear. I'm bouncing about here. I've addressed Nick's. Hopefully, I've addressed it enough, and hopefully, he feels that I've got an understanding of what he means, and it's something that he can come to me personally about, and him and I can talk about if he feels like I can help him, or or if he feels that just sharing it with somebody who's willing to listen, hopefully Nick will come to me, or I'll come back to it later on. But what I like to do with fear is I label fear. I call it something, because it is a something. Fear is a something. It's something that we create. Now, the way that what I liken fear to is, I like to say fear is a monster, or like a big animal, like a bear. Let's say you were to live with a monster, or you're going to live with a bear. There's a big grizzly bear that lives in your house with you, okay? Now, the reason that the bear is there, or the big monster, the reason that they're there is because you keep feeding this bear. You keep feeding this bear. So the fear is your bear. You keep feeding it. You keep giving it bits of meat. You keep giving it, like, So you're like, oh, this bloody bear is there all the time. I've got to feed it. The reason you're feeding the bear is because you're worried about what will happen if you don't feed the bear. If I don't feed the bear, is the bear going to get me? So you're feeding the bear to prevent the bear getting you. Now, there's no signs that this bear that lives with you is trying to eat you. It's just in your house. Or the monster, it's just in your house. There's absolutely no signs that this monster or this bear is trying to get you. It just happens to be there. You've assumed it's going to get you, so you're feeding it to stop that happening. But the bear's only staying because you keep feeding it. And that's exactly like fear. Being scared is not something you're going to be able to control very well, okay? An instant will happen and you will get scared in the split second. Whether that's an experienced pilot, paragliding and get big collapses. I know this because I've flown with many very good comp pilots. I've seen them have incidents and like, oh, whoo, flip now. They've flown the rest of the task brilliantly. They land like, oh, yeah, my heart went then. Oh, shit myself. Now, everyone, that's going to happen to everyone because that response is natural. That's the inane response that we have, and that response that we have from millennia. That's in us. What you're doing as soon as you get fear involved is you're feeding the bear, man. You're feeding it something like, I want that to go away. So as soon as you address it, you go, oh God, that big collapse happened. Oh my God, what if another one happens? What if it happens again and I can't make the landing? What if it? So you're now feeding the bear. Conversely, if you are in an MMA fight, get hit in the face really, really hard and it hurts, you don't want to get hit really, really hard again in the face. And you think, oh my God, I'm hit really hard. I don't want to get hit like that again. And you see this fighters start to fight then defensively. They start thinking, oh, I'm going to be really defensive. I'm not going to let him hit me. Well, the easiest person to hit in a fight is someone who's not hitting you back. Someone who has no intention on hitting me or hurting me is the easiest person for me to fight. You can be as defensive as you want. I guarantee you I will find a way to hurt you. So in you being defensive and trying to protect yourself from this fear that's got you, this thing that's hurt you, it's hurt me, oh my God, protect myself, cover up, protect myself, don't let anything get through. You're making yourself a lot more susceptible to being hurt again because there's no attack from you. So if you get hurt in a fight, you might have to acknowledge it. It might be really painful. It might hurt. It might not be enjoyable. So you may have to acknowledge it. It may really hurt your eye. You might have to protect my eye. But the best way to do that is to start to fight back. As soon as you come at me and you start to throw punches, if I hit you with a punch in the eye, you might now be scared. So now you're dealing with your fear because my punch hurt your eye. So now we're both back to a level playing field. Now, because I've hurt you, I start to creep up and my fear starts to drop again. And we've leveled the playing field again. So the best thing to do is not be that defensive shell that goes back in and tries to cover everything and protect yourself from everything that's going to hurt you and protect yourself from every punch. You can't do it. You're making yourself more susceptible. What you have to do is you have to find a way to attack whilst maintaining enough defense to protect yourself. And this, in base jumping, etc., is done by immersion, practice, time, analysis. Now, a story I'm going to have with you for base jumping, and it's one that came up to me when I started base jumping, that presented itself to me. And we were in Idaho, and we went to jump a cliff in Idaho. There was about 15 of us, I'm going to say. And there was a guy who was leading us, Tom Aiello, very, very good guy, very good base jumper, base jumping coach. And we all went to this cliff. It was quite windy. Now, anyone who knows air knows that you shouldn't really jump off cliffs when it's quite windy and it's really sunny because it's Idaho. You can't really predict how the wind's behaving in a valley. Now, we all went to the edge and he said, I don't think you should jump. There's a lot of beginners here. I don't think the beginners, everyone on the course shouldn't really jump. It's a bit unpredictable, but it's entirely up to you. What do you want to do? So I went to the front with another guy. I looked at it. The wind started to come up in my face. I spat over the edge to see where the spit went. I was looking, I was like, I'm not sure. And I looked at my mate, Justin, and he's like, I'm jumping. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, I'm jumping. He's like, you jumping? I was like, no, I'm not sure, mate. And I didn't jump. He jumped. Everything went fine. Next person jumped. Everything went fine. They landed and so on. You going for it? I was like, no, We went back. We all got back together in a group, and somebody said to me, Paul, I didn't think you'd get scared, mate. I was like, oh, I wasn't scared. It wasn't fear. I never allowed the fear to come into it. I didn't allow the fear to creep into that situation. What happened to me was I went to the edge, and all the elements that would have created the fear, i.e., when I stood at the edge, I realized it doesn't feel right. Like the wind's not really as it should, and I'm not really sure if I should jump. I don't know, maybe I'm not experienced enough, but I'm not really sure if I should jump. What would have happened in that scenario had I have put my base jumping rig on, had I have put my helmet on, had I have put my shin guards on? The moment that would have happened, I'd have started to get a little bit scared. What happens if something goes wrong? The second that happens, I now have to manage my fear in a situation where I already have to manage the elements that aren't quite perfect. So what I chose to do in that scenario was walk away, because I knew the first part of the scenario was I'm not sure. I'm just not quite sure. So I said I'm going to prevent the fear side of it by walking away. And do you know what I did? The next day I went and jumped that cliff, because I went. The conditions were right. It felt good. I put all my kit on. I was no more scared than I would be jumping off of any object. No, the fear never got into me. Got that bit where like, well, I guess we're going to do it then. Here we go then. Yeah, boom. Now I'm locked in. I'm focused. I'm not going to allow the fear to get hold of me now. I got that little bit. I've been scared for a second, so I'm going to jump off of a cliff. But that fear's gone. I'm focused now. Okay, right. So canopy opens. I land. I make a left-hand turn. I land there. But I'm focused now. Had I have chosen to do it in that first instance, I really doubt that I would have been able to control the fear once I jumped. And that's before even anything may have gone wrong. It may have gone perfectly like the other two guys. But just because the other two guys went, that wasn't enough for me to look at the situation and say, no, it was all right for them. It's going to be all right for me. I managed my fear before I allowed it to happen. So I prevented it. And this is the most important part for the people who are listening to this. It's the managing of your fear. And I'm going to keep reiterating that after every sort of point that I make, I'm going to keep reiterating that. It's the managing of the fear, because if you haven't clicked on by now, or if this hasn't sunk in yet, you are responsible for your fear. It's not people say fear is a natural reaction. Now, I mean, we can talk semantics and be pedantic, but I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say being scared is a natural reaction. Fear is the prolonging of that being scared. So that's the way that I look at it, because otherwise fear becomes too broad, and I can't. If fear is a natural reaction, I can't control it. So let's just forget it, and we're always going to have fear. No. Being scared is my natural reaction, and I'm playing literally with semantics of words here. Being scared is my natural reaction. Fear is the process of me allowing it to spiral, or the process of what happens next. Fear management, fear, it's all comes from that initial being scared. I hope that makes sense to people, and I hope that in saying that I haven't alienated anyone. I accept that people say fear is a natural response. I just happen to say being scared, or there's a scare response, because when something happens like that, the initial thing is like, oh, scared. Oh, that scared me. Oh, that scared me. So I like to say being scared is natural. Fear is 100% down to you. 100%. How you manage it, how you deal with it, if it happens, where it happens, and when it happens, all of those elements are down to you. So we have to look and find ways that work for ourselves to address those fears. Troy Fry on Facebook has added something. I'm going to have a quick read, 2 seconds, and I'll see if it's anything that I think is worth addressing. It's just that these come in so fast, I can't deal with them. As you know, I was in a bad car crash. Bad as in high speed and lots of damage to the car, and rolling the car a few times. After coming out of hospital, I felt a fear to get in the car with my parents. Is this classed as fear or being scared? And how can you get over this? Right. So again, we'll play with semantics here. Okay, we'll play with words a little. I know how bad your car accident was. You have permanent injuries because of your car accident. So I realize and accept how bad your car accident was. Now, there are going to be elements of this and fear that are very psychological and quite possibly medically psychological. So I wouldn't dare try to tell someone how to get over PTSD. being in Iraq, being in Iran, even maybe being in this car accident, I wouldn't dare tell someone how to recover from those things. I will tell people how I manage fear. Now, for me, you said you felt fear to get into your parents' car. No, you didn't. You felt scared to get in somebody's car. So again, semantics. You could say, well, yeah, no, that's what I meant. No, but it's really important for how I address fear. So you felt scared getting into somebody's car. Okay, I get it. When you look at what it was that you were scared of, I'm scared of having another accident. That's fear. Okay, that's fear. You're preempting what happens. The moment you're scared was the second that happened. The fear was looking at what could have happened. How many times did you get in a car and nothing happened previously? How many times did you get in a car and nothing happened since? Also, you have to look at the scenario in which you had a car accident. You were going, a high-speed car accident implies you were going way too fast. The person driving the car, were they driving erratically? There are many factors that you have to factor in. And when you deal with, when you're trying to deal with fear, post-incident like this, it's very important that you analyze what happened. And when I say analyze, I mean, what you have to do is you have to analyze things in a way that you want to eliminate them. The same way that I was talking about the guy who had the incident with the collapse of the wing, which was nothing really. He landed. First thing he said was, "Whoa, did you see my collapse?" Like, immediately you've analyzed that as a negative thing immediately. After I would land, I'd be like, "Well, I had a bit of a collapse. I'm going to have to have a look at that later on." And that's how I would look at it. For yourself with the car, I guarantee you the one thing that got you over this was immersion and exposure. We live in a world where you have to keep getting in cars. Your life would not have been able to move forward the way that it did if you didn't keep getting in cars. So I would say your example is a perfect example of immersion and exposure therapy. But also, I'm absolutely positive that you would have needed cognitive rehabilitation. So at some point you would have had to, I don't know, Troy, maybe you can answer this just in the comments below. Did you see a psychologist or a psychiatrist? Did somebody help you with this? If so, did you talk over the incident? And do you feel that helped you get over the incident? Because for me, I think in this scenario, I would opt for the cognitive rehabilitation before the exposure therapy, because you have physical injuries. It's the same with people who have a paragliding accident. If you have a paragliding accident or a base jumping accident, let's say, if you have a base jumping accident, it's very difficult to deal with the exposure or immersion therapy. So what will happen is if you're out of the game, i.e. paragliding, skydiving, base jumping, a car accident, you get really injured in a fight. If you're out of that game for 6 months, that 6 months of not being able to do exposure or immersion therapy is going to further solidify the fear, and it's going to help you. It's going to help the fear creep in, and you're going to continue to feed the fear. You're going to replay the incident in your head, and it's going to make you shiver. You might have nightmares. All of those things are going to happen, and you're going to continue to feed that bear all the time. And you're not addressing the cognitive, or you are addressing the cognitive rehabilitation, but in the negative. So it's very important that when we have an accident and an accident that injures us, it's very important that the very first aspect is the cognitive rehabilitation, or the fact that we address the scenario and we look at our mental approach to how we address that, because the immersion or the exposure therapy just isn't there. I mean, from other point, I've seen base jumpers. I've been on site where we've jumped and base jumper snapped his leg and put his bone through his leg. I've had to carry him to my car. We've drove to the hospital. I've taken him to the hospital. He's had to have plates, pins, 9 months in hospital. Next day I went and jumped off of a building. Not because I'm stupid or I don't care, but because the moment that happens, I've already addressed what went wrong. I went straight home. I watched the video footage. I know what he did wrong. Okay, I can see that. That's not going to impact on my jump. Nothing that happened in that jump, everything that happened in that jump to injure him was a result of what he did. So as soon as I know that, I'm not going to allow that to influence my next jump or how I handle my next action. It's not going to be influenced by something that person did. So my cognitive rehabilitation from watching someone have a really bad accident started immediately. And because of that, I was able to address it quickly and get straight to the immersion or exposure therapy, straight back. The same with my accident at Westbury when my paraglider collapsed and I hit the floor. I didn't have too much injury, went to hospital, I had a bad back. My back hurt quite badly, but not enough that, I had x-rays, I was completely fine, just like muscle twinges. So I went out the next day and I flew immediately. Because I know from doing the research that I've done and the reading that I've done, that as soon as you stop exposure immersion therapy, the moment you stop it, you're immediately starting to dwindle back into the point where these fear responses come in. Where you're more inclined to get scared. Each day is one step closer or one step further away or one step backwards to where you initially had fear. And the longer you go, the longer you take off, the further away you're getting from the point that you were at, and the closer you're getting back to the initial fear that you still had when you first undertook the process. So as soon as it happened to me, the next day it was important that I went and flew. Not because I was scared. I didn't think, oh God, I'm going to be scared. I just knew. I knew what would happen if I didn't fly. I know I could deal with the cognitive aspect of it, but I have to go fly now. The immersion side of it, I have to go fly and I have to prove myself. I went and flew. I did an XC. I maybe flew for 4 hours. It was a big flight the next day. I know that. Anyway, I had a big flight the next day. And second I took off, I flew for 10, 15 minutes. I was completely fine, had no fear. But the cognitive side of it stayed with me for a long time, analysing it, rewatching the video, analyse it. Was it me? Was it me? I even posted it on Facebook. Can anybody see anything that I did wrong? I think I did everything that I could. And other people were saying to me, no, Wes, you did everything that I can think of there. So the cognitive rehabilitation for me was really important because the immersion happened immediately. If you can't have that immersion therapy like yourself, Troy, like you said, you went to counselling for 6 weeks after you felt it made a massive difference. Now, the counselling, all the counselling did was give you tools. You then used those tools and you implemented them in your own cognitive rehabilitation, which then allowed you in the future to get into the car to work on the immersion therapy. And that's something that I think that people who have an accident or an incident in any of these scenarios, I think that that's really important, is that you must sit down and you must say to yourself, oh, I've had this accident. I'm not going to be able to fly. I can't fly for, say, X amount of weeks. Or I can't ride my motorbike for X amount of months. I can't jump off a building for so-and-so. So I'll just forget about doing those things. No, it's very important that you focus immediately on the cognitive rehabilitation, whether that's a tiny little collapse up in the sky or whether that's you have a speed wobble at 100 miles an hour on your motorbike. You address the cognitive rehabilitation immediately, even whilst you're still in flight or still riding your motorbike. I recommend you don't ride your motorbike at 100 miles an hour. You slow back down and you address what happened. With paragliding, let's say, if you have a big collapse, it's very important for me that I deal with the issue that went wrong immediately. I look at the second it happens, and I had a massive, really big frontal at Piedrahita during a comp last season. I was on full bar. My Enzo completely frontaled on me. I twisted, it surged, I caught the surge, and I was facing a completely different way that I was heading in a thermal, just approached the thermal, so there's lots of other pilots around me, caught the surge, boom, turned out, boom, look at my glider's flying, have a second to go, woohoo, you, have a look, boom, straight back, I look at my task, because that's the first thing I do, is I try and put something else in my head immediately. I looked at my task, boom, looked at my task, okay, right, yeah, we got 12 minutes to go to the start gate, okay, I'm happy, I'm good. Boom. Well, that was a radical collapse, but man, I was on that quick. I didn't let that get away from me, did I? Caught that immediately. And immediately the cognitive rehabilitation started. I acknowledged what went wrong, and I acknowledged even more what I did, how I responded, how my response made the glider fly how I wanted it to fly. And subsequently, the reason we're now still flying is not that I'm in a really safe glider that looked after me. The reason we're still flying is because of everything that I did. And that's really important for me, is to recognize that this incident that was out of my control is something that I got completely under control, recognized, and I'm the reason that we are now back flying safely. If I hit a speed wobble at 100 miles an hour, I use that for an example because I've been the dickhead who's been doing 100 miles an hour and hit a speed wobble. I hit the speed wobble and immediately you cannot let off the throttle. So I accelerate slightly, I get the feet while I'm under control. I come back under, immediately my hands are shaking. I can feel them as I'm gripping my handlebars. My hands are shaking. I get my bike level back up. I come back, check my mirrors, make sure there's no cars like trying to overtake. Nothing, everything's good. And immediately I look, check something, my speed, whatever it may be, to immediately take my mind off it. Boom, check my speed. Okay, I'm back down to 60 miles an hour. Okay, whew, man, you caught that one really well. You were almost gone there. Let's not put ourselves in that situation again. Immediately, I reinforced the positives that I did. That meant that I was the reason that it didn't escalate. And I think that's really important. Is the very first. Don't wait till you land. Don't wait till you stop your motorbike. As soon as it happens, address it immediately. Nick, for you, if you leave a thermal because it's strong and powerful, as soon as you leave the thermal, for a split second, just look at something to take your mind off what's happened, and then say, I left that, but I was doing quite well there. I was climbing quite well. Look, everyone else is still climbing. I'm all right here. Put yourself back in. Put yourself back in and climb. Now, what's really important, especially with paragliding, and please recognize I'm not saying this, you have to recognize that sometimes the conditions are bad and they're telling you you shouldn't be here. You should not be flying here. You should not be doing this. You should move away. And it's very important that you understand that. But that is where you become a pilot. Fear should have no aspect to that. You should be able to, as a pilot, assess, actually, this is not really a good situation. Now, if there's 6 other pilots climbing in a thermal that's quite strong and you've just got the willies a little bit, that will be you, and you have to find a way to manage that. And my advice is you find something to distract you immediately. Look at your clocks, look at wherever you're going. And this is why I say to someone, always set a task. Whenever you take off of a hill, always set a task of where you want to go. We're back onto paragliding again, guys, I'm sorry. But always set a task, okay? Because if I've got a task of 50 kilometers set in my, and always set a big task. If you've only ever flown 20 kilometers, every task from now on should be 50 kilometers, at least 50 kilometers. So set a 50 kilometer task because you're going to really want to fly that task. You get a little thing that happens, a little bit of nervous energy or twitch. You address it. You look at your clock. You say, I'm only 12K into this task here. This looks like a day it could be on. My glider's flying okay. Okay, right, let's get back focused. They're all still climbing quite well. Okay. And find that thing that makes you, Nick, you've just said, I've started drinking water. Superb. Anything that takes your mind off of it. I find, instead of water, I like to have little electrolyte drinks, like little electrolyte tablets that I put in my water for this reason. A, flavor will enhance a lot more, the word I'm looking for is going to blow your mind that I've forgotten it. It'll come to me in a minute. Sense. Flavor will enhance more senses. It will enhance more electrical responses than just plain water. So you get a bit of flavor going to your mouth. It will ignite a lot more responses. It will give your brain so much more to activate and think about. You get those little bits of flavor that make the mind go crazy for a second. Also, it's got lots of salts and sugars and electrolytes. People will be shocked at how much you will lose sat on a hill getting sweaty or trying 3 or 4 takeoffs. So having a little electrolyte tablet in your drink makes a massive difference because A, your brain's focusing on something. As soon as you take a drink, like, ooh, that was quite nice. And also you have the added extra of it's got salt, sugars and electrolytes in there that will replace what you've lost. So I think it's a great distraction technique. Try it with something like an electrolyte drink, see if it helps. It may not help you, but try it. It might be something that helps you. So a couple of people, Tyler James has just said, what you say about walking away from the cliff jump when the conditions didn't feel right, not because of fear, but because of how fear could set in once you started setting up to do after you knew it wasn't right, has made me realize that's where I went wrong in my last fight. I was genuinely worried that I hadn't sparred enough due to a niggly injury in the weeks leading up to it. I knew it wasn't right, did it anyway, and let the fear set in because I knew I wasn't ready, as I could have been, and that affected how I started the fight. I rushed in and made a mistake. Perfect scenario for a few different reasons, Tyler. A, your opponent may have been better than you. I've had fights and you can analyze them and your opponent may have been better than you. Okay, that can always happen. We can't address that, we can train, and we can be the best that we can be, okay? It comes down to the fact that at certain times in our career, we're going to face people who are better than us on that night, okay? It happens. It's happened to me. People are just better than you at certain aspects, okay? Now, the other aspect is we must, in this scenario, be as prepared as we can be, because the only thing that we can be responsible for is ourselves. We can't say, oh, somebody said they saw our opponent, he was out drinking last Saturday. You mean might have been out drinking last Saturday? That's all very well, he might have been, but he might have been training every day since, every day before. He might be doing 4 times the amount of sessions as you. We can't control what our opponent's doing, so we must ensure that we're doing everything we can do so that when we come to that fight, the negative aspects will never be, am I prepared? Have I done enough? Is it this? Now, as a fighter, you'll always have that. That will always happen. That's going to be up to your coach, whoever your coach was for your last fight. It's going to be up to your coach to know that you are ready, look at you. And I've done this with my fighters, and I'm sure they'll confirm. I've said, I'm pulling you from the fight, mate. You're just not ready yet. It's just not, there's going to be fights there for you. We're going to take it out. Things haven't gone right. The elements haven't been right for you. And that's up to someone else to step in, because it's hard. As a fighter, you have to remain positive and assume that you can do your best. But like you say, that allowed that to become fear, and not fear like as in you feel it and you're scared. The fear was just a doubt, and that doubt then became, I'm not doing enough. I can't quite perform the way I want. Before I step in here, I already know I'm on the back foot against this guy because I haven't done all that I can do. And that's the same with paragliding. Paragliding, I'll say, I always tell people to do lots of SIV. The reason I say to do lots of SIV is not because it's going to make you a better pilot. I don't believe it does make you a better pilot. It just allows you to understand the scenario. So if you do get a big collapse, if anything does happen, for a split second, you recognize what's happening. You have that initial thing of, oh, I recognize what's happened, but my glider's collapsed. And it just gives you a split second more to concentrate on the positive sides, or focus on, or you sort out the wing without even concentrating on that, and you're already focusing on the other aspects, which is why the immersion therapy in that would be SIV for collapses in paragliding, etc. What it gives me, or what it gave me, is I like to feel the scenario that could happen whilst I'm on a flight. If I get big collapses, now I've had big collapses loads of times whilst doing simulated collapses over a lake, let's say. Base jumping, I used to go to a bridge in Idaho where everyone goes, the Perrine Bridge, and we would jump and we'd pack our parachutes the wrong way around. Tom Aiello runs a great course which teaches you how to pack your parachute the wrong way around. You jump off the bridge and it opens backwards, and immediately you get on your toggles or on your risers and you pull the canopy the right way around. Can't hurt yourself because it's a bridge. You just fly underneath it. But if you were jumping off a building, it turns the wrong way around. Immediately the response is there and you can act on it straight away. So that's cognitive rehabilitation, but preemptive. So you're putting in all the measures there for what if this goes wrong. You're preparing yourself as best as you can. So your cognitive rehabilitation there starts, I know it's not because it's preemptive, but that will play a big part in your cognitive rehabilitation because you've practiced the scenarios and you're a lot more familiar or comfortable when these things happened, and they give you that split second of reaction as opposed to that split second, oh shit, what's happening? And that split second will make the big difference. In paragliding, it could be an incident in the middle of the sky. You're on your own. It's not a big incident, but an incident. But the moment you get the, oh shit, what's happening? Boom, that's the fear. That's the fear. It's too late for you. The fear's got you now. You now have to go immediately on the attack and address it. Or, as people have done, they come, they look, they try and land. The worst thing there, go and land, go and land, go and land. Again, if it's a bad scenario, it's a bad situation, that may be the right thing to do. But go and land, I go and land, I go and land, instead of addressing in the air what went wrong. Joe Hatton on Facebook has said, correct me if I'm wrong. So are you saying that the way we respond to the first fault that creates the fear is how that fault festers and spreads to our thinking? And over time, the fear gets worse and worse each time we near the experience. Kind of, but not. So what I'm saying is the initial thing that happens scares you. Okay, no fear. Forget fear. It scares you. Okay, the fear is that thing happening again. That's fear. Being scared or that thing scaring you is the initial thing that happens. Okay, that boom, that's scared. We create the fear because we're preemptively scared of what might happen again, or we preemptively have fear of being scared again. So the initial thing that happens, boom, that's the scaring of us. How we handle that is then the fear. Now, how that festers and manifests is 100% you. Okay, that's what that is. You cannot have an accident. The moment you have an accident, you fall downstairs, break your leg, you fall off a swing as a kid and bump your head, a plethora of different scenarios. The moment it's over, that instant's over. It's over. It cannot get any worse. It cannot get any better. That instant's over. That is the initial thing. The festering, or the way that it manifests itself thereafter, is all created by you. We are 100% in control of our brains, okay? It post event, where the analysis, etc., is 100% up to us. Now, the worst thing that people can do here is say, no, I don't believe that, mate. No, because I wasn't able. No, you're wrong. You're 100% wrong. The fear is how you have analyzed what has happened. Okay, it's not me. It's not me saying it. This is from books that I've read, psychologists. I could list off a load of really good books that you should read, which I might even put a link in after. But the emotional side now is you. Steve Peters calls it the chimp. Your chimp would run away with that. They'd run away wild with it. You'd lose contact with everything that's happened. It's the chimp's now got the fear and he's running wild and you can't stop him and he's going mental and there's no way to control him. The only way you can control him is, Steve Peters called it, the computer. You'd have to program the computer and the computer would have to program the chimp. Now, what I'm saying is it's best, 100% best, to not allow that to happen. To not allow that festering or to allow that fear to manifest itself. So easier said than done, especially if you've been injured in your accident and you're laid in a hospital bed, or you're 100% easier said than done. But you must understand all the fear that you create, all the fear that you have after an incident has been created by you and you alone. That is it. When it comes to, say, doing exactly the same thing again, let's say I fell off a swing. I go to the park, I swing too high, I fall off backwards, I hit my head, I really hurt myself, okay? I go back to the swings again, and I'm like, oh man, I've enjoyed all these swings. Whoa, these swings, I always get hurt on swings. Whoa. The moment I go to those swings and I have that scared feeling, that's it. I can't control that. That's happened, that's there. As soon as I've had that scared feeling, once I sit on the swing and swing, the scared feeling can't get any worse. You've had the scared feeling. The chemicals, the amygdala's reacted, the chemical of cortisol has been released in your body. That's it. Unless exponentially it gets worse, you're not going to get scared and scared again, and scared again, and scared again, and scared again. You will automatically go from being okay to being scared. You're not, I'm okay, but I'm scared too. I just hope I don't get scared 10. No, you go from being okay to being scared. The amygdala's engaged and you're starting to release cortisol. You're okay, you're now scared. As soon as you are scared, this now is what we have to deal with. This being scared is this. Okay, that's scared. I'm now scared. Boom. This is what I'm scared. This is what we have to deal with. The moment we start fear coming into this and doubt and negativity, now we have to deal with this. So all of this is what happened that we couldn't control. This is what happened and we couldn't control it. This was being scared. Then we start to get doubt, negativity, fear, what ifs, all these things. And now we're dealing with this, all off the back of that one thing that we couldn't control. As soon as we're scared and we know we're scared, how we then deal with that is exactly that. That's fear. Okay, it's always fear, even in addressing it. I'm not saying you shouldn't have any fear. That's important too. I'm not saying you shouldn't address, even in addressing it, that's fear. The fact that I felt scared, it's fear that makes me address it. So what I do, instead of this happening, and then fear comes in, and now I got worry, and now I've got doubt. Oh shit, I should address this. No, this happens. Now fear comes in. Now I'm going to use this fear to address this. And now all I've had is this fear to address this. Okay, right. I've got this fear. Right. My fear was, boom, I'm going to use my fear positively. Okay, I was scared, but I'm not going to get any more scared. I'm now sat on the swing. If I'm sat on the swing and I'm already scared, I might as well start swinging, right? Because if I'm already scared, I might as well just start swinging. So you start to swing on the swing. Okay. Oh, my belly rolled over a bit then. Oh, yeah, no, I'm still scared. I'm still scared here. Yeah, I know you're scared. I recognize that we're scared, but now we're swinging and we're still okay. So a minute ago, we were scared and we weren't swinging. Now we're swinging and we're still okay. We might as well swing for a couple more minutes, haven't we? And we'll still be okay. Okay, let's swing for a few more minutes. Oh, I'm still scared. I'm still scared. Yeah, you are still scared, but you're still swinging and you're still doing okay. Nothing bad has happened. Okay, so what now if I stop swinging? Okay, let's stop swinging then. Let's slow it down. Let's stop swinging. So you slow down. I'm slowing down. Oh, yeah, it's getting better. Yeah. Okay, now, I've stopped. Right, okay, so here's my fear and here's that scaredness. Okay, so you're on the swing. And are you scared anymore? No, I'm not scared anymore because I swung and I'm okay. Should we swing again? Oh, I'm still a little bit scared of that. Okay, you're scared. Let's swing again then. Let's just swing again. Nice and slow like we did. We start swinging again. Okay, are you still scared? I'm still a little bit scared, yeah. Okay, no problem. Keep swinging because we're scared, but nothing's happening. We're still okay. We're in control. Let's keep swinging. Okay, let's slow down again. Slow down again. Slow down again. And let's stop. Okay, here's fear. I'm still scared. Well, no, my scaredness actually is dissipated a bit. I actually want to swing again now. Okay, so you want to swing again. You're still a little bit scared. This is fear. Yeah, I'm still a little bit scared, but I'm going to swing again because now I want to. So you swing again. You swing again. Okay, it feels good. Actually, I'm going to go a bit faster. I swing again. I really enjoyed this. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to stop. Boom. You stop. Are you scared? I'm not scared anymore. I'm not scared. What if we swing again? Yeah, I'll swing again now. You're happy to swing again? Yeah, I'm happy to swing again. I want to. And you see, I'm not scared anymore. The fear never escalated. It never became worry, never became woe, dread, didn't become any of those things. It was just fear for a second. And I managed it immediately. As soon as I knew I'm scared, okay, here's fear, let's combat that. Boom. And I used it. That was an example of immersion and cognitive at the same time. And I used it to address the initial thing that scared me and then to address the fear that came immediately. Because the fear came, it did come, and I used it to, that fear, I addressed the fear immediately, and I used that fear to positively address why I was scared. And then I managed to alleviate it. Now, that's a very basic scenario, and it comes with, that's a very basic scenario that comes with very small or minor repercussions. So if you have a massive accident, you have to address it exactly the same way, but it might be a time period that's longer. You might have to address it with cognitive therapy first and then over to immersion therapy, but it's exactly the same. You address the scenario exactly the same way for however amount of time. And what you do is you recognize every negative aspect, every negative bit that comes into it. Like, oh, but if I do ride again, and if I do, but you might not. If you ride your motorbike again, you might not crash your motorbike. You've only ever crashed it once. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we crashed it because we did this. We managed that and we think, do we want to ride a motorbike? Yes, I love riding my motorbike. Okay. Can we ride a motorbike safely? Yes, I have X amount of years proven I can ride a motorbike safely. Are there factors I can't control? Yes, 100%. Was that any different before I had my accident? No, it was exactly the same. Okay, right. So now we're managing all the psychological aspects as best we can, and now we're going to find the positivity and manage the fear with that. Now, the reason I make that sound so easy is for this reason. All fear is illogical. There's no logical fear. Okay, it's not the fear is not logical. There's no logical fear. Fear, like people say, oh no, there is logical fear. No, all fear is illogical because we made it up. That's why it's illogical. It's something we've created. It's fictional. All fear is fictional. All fear is a bear. We're feeding it, or we're not feeding it, and we're getting rid of it. So that's why all fear is illogical. And we can combat all fear with rational thinking, cognitive therapy if need be, and immersion therapy a lot of the time works. So it's very simple to understand that no matter how big your issue or how small your issue, they can all be combated exactly the same way. And that comes with from the smallest incident to the biggest incident, it comes with the way that you address these things and recognizing, really recognizing that you are the problem. You have created the fear. Okay, it will come back if you allow it. It will come back as time goes on. The longer you avoid the scenario that scares you, the more chance you have of fear creeping back in. The more you address the scenario, the less chance you have of fear creeping back in. And when fear does creep back in, if you've avoided it for a long period of time, the less you will be in a position to deal with it. So recognizing it and continually being in a situation where fear is an aspect of your life, you're more likely to be able to handle it. You're more likely to be able to deal with it. I don't expect everyone to go out tomorrow and have no fears. I certainly didn't. I certainly still don't. There are situations where sometimes the scaredness lasts a lot longer than I would like. I never really allow fear to get the better of me now. I do get aspects where I get scared of something and then I'm scared of it, and the next minute I find myself 10 minutes later still scared of that thing. I'm going to give you a scenario. I was paragliding in the X Pier, and I hadn't done a lot of mountain flying. I'd done, I think I'd done 2 weeks mountain flying ever, and I entered into this mountain flying race, and I was quite high, trying to pass a valley and a gorge, and I was looking at the sky. The sky looked good, but the wind had changed direction, and I thought, I don't know what's over that valley, or should I go for it? If I go for it and there's no landing spots, and what if this? So I carry on climbing. I push out front, I climb a little bit, and I was like, oh, but what if I this? And oh, should I do it? Shan't I do it? Should I? Oh, I don't know. If I end up in the bottom of the valley and I got to hike up. If I'd have been in flatland flying, I'd have gone for it immediately, because I know flatland flying. I do it all the time. It wasn't fear that had crept in and I'd stopped. Like, I was, oh, if I go over there, I'm really going to get hurt. It was none of those things. It was unknown. So I was scared. Initially, I was scared. Oh, what if there's nowhere to land? Oh God, I better not go over there. Oh, what if there is somewhere to land now? You could do quite well in the race if you landed over there. Yeah, but are you sure it's? And that negativity, that doubt, that lack of experience in that area just allowed enough time for me to sit in that scared zone that I doubted myself, and I landed on top of the mountain I was on. And that all came from, I'd not been in the scenario enough, so I was scared for longer than I would have liked to have been. If I'd have been scared on a flatland flight in that situation, I'd have been oh, so I go, like, yeah, don't be stupid. You go there. If not, you'll always find somewhere to land. You know how to fly your paraglider. You go there, you find, and I'd have reacted immediately. But because that scared moment lasted a lot longer than a split second, suddenly the doubt, the negativity, that they're all aspects of fear, that popped in. What if? And I allowed that to control what I did, and I landed. Okay, I landed safely. I wasn't hurt. So is it a bad thing? It's not a bad thing that I'm not hurt and I'm okay. It's a bad thing from a psychological aspect, in that I didn't address it properly, or I didn't manage the initial scenario appropriately and combat what then became fear. I hope that makes sense. So this is like an hour and 30 minutes now. So I'm thinking that maybe you guys are probably fed up of hearing me talk. But if anybody wants to ask any questions, I'm happy to spend 10 minutes or so answering questions now. If anyone wants to write some questions, or if anyone's got any questions they want to pop up now on Facebook, or pop up now on YouTube. Also, if you feel like this has helped, or you feel like it can help, there's so much more that I would like to talk about on this subject. But it is 9:10, and we're in a scenario where, we're trapped in the house. We can't get away. So I'm sure there's lots of things you would like to be doing as well, chilling out, etc. So yeah, I'm going to probably think about cutting this short. I'll give you a couple of references of things that I've read over time. Read them again, read them 4 times. Keep reading this sort of thing. A good author on psycho-cybernetics, neuro-linguistic programming, that sort of thing, is Maxwell Maltz. That's how I started. I read a book called, I think it's called The Complete Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. He's very good. I really like Maxwell Maltz's work. There's a guy called Steve Peters, Chimp Paradox. He's very famous now. And although I find that his Chimp Paradox is a bit of a gimmick, but that's because I'm someone who's read a lot of psychology books, so I can process what he's saying. Even someone who hasn't read a lot of psychology books and is inept or in tune with psychology, you might read it and think, this is a bit intense. It can be, even though it's a bit of a gimmick, the chimp aspect of it. Very good book. I highly recommend everyone reads it. It is hard reading though. It is quite intense reading. So yeah, I do recommend you read that. Steve Peters, The Chimp Paradox. He has other books, but that's the go-to. Read that one first. There's some great work by James Aframau, really good sports psychology books. Gavin De Becker, superb. Susan Jeffers, really good author. All these people have written really good books. I will try and post a link up on my Facebook status later on. If you haven't followed this on Facebook, give me a message or a text and I'll try and get them over to you. Stuff that I've done, and yeah, I'll try and make sure that you've got access to them. Also on YouTube, type these guys' names into YouTube. Lots of them have done TED Talks and stuff. So if you're not fed up of hearing a person talk about psychology and fear, type that into YouTube and listen to someone else rattle on about psychology and fear. People are a lot more qualified than me as well. That might prove interesting. My closing message here. Yeah, so Ron has said, if I watch this through later and think of a question, will you answer? If I send it, I will answer all of you. You can send it to me directly, or you can put it on my Facebook wall, or however you want. If you want to contact me and ask me a question, please do. If you see me in person, please stop me and talk to me. And also, if a couple of you have questions and you want me to do a video on a specific scenario, then message me and I'll happily do a video for you on that specific scenario. So yeah, I'll answer anyone's questions if I have them, or refer you to books or publications or videos that I think may help you. Now, what's very important in closing before I log off is that I would like to say that fear and the aspects of fear, they have what's known as a generalized threat response. Now, in a generalized threat response, it works like this. If I allow fear to act in one way, in one scenario, i.e., I get scared of a paragliding incident or I get scared of a motorcycle accident, the chances are I'm going to allow that fear response to act in every other aspect of my life. It's called a generalized fear response, okay? So what we must start doing is addressing our fear responses really in every aspect of our life, and not just when we wait for something to happen or something to scare us. And this is why this coronavirus thing has allowed some people to be like, oh, we're doomed. If we get this, we're all going to die. It's because they have a generalized fear response, that they don't listen to the actual evidence and they don't analyze the actual things that are said, and they allow their ingrained fear response to overtake, and they use that response in every aspect of their life. So please try and use these attributes from today, from now. Any questions? Think of the bear as well. I really like the bear scenario. Think of the bear. Don't feed your bear, okay? Keep the meat in the fridge for yourself. There's food shortages, remember? Everyone's out panic buying, so keep the meat for yourself. Don't feed the bear. Yeah, generalized fear responses, please start addressing them immediately, and don't wait for a scary incident to happen to then try and address your fear response, because then you're going to allow any negative that happens will be taken into any other aspect of your life. So remember that generalized fear response. Don't feed your bear. Thank you very much for asking for me to do this, B, tuning in and listening. And if you want to share it, please share it. And any questions, if you want me to do another one similarly, I'll be more than happy. Thank you very much, everybody.